The story begins aboard a luxury airplane, in the hushed ambience of a first-class cabin bathed in soft lighting. Malik, a black man in his 30s, sits comfortably in his seat, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit. His polished appearance and calm demeanor blend seamlessly with the refined surroundings. Casually flipping through a magazine, he observes the other passengers with quiet indifference, accustomed to ignoring the curious or suspicious glances directed his way. A successful businessman in the tech industry, Malik avoids drawing attention to himself, preferring discretion despite the quiet confidence his presence exudes. He is no stranger to the stereotypes he faces and has learned to ignore them, focusing instead on his own goals. However, the serenity is shattered by the arrival of Don Esteban, a real estate magnate infamous for his arrogance and fiery temper. Dressed in a flamboyant three-piece suit, the wealthy man strides down the aisle with an air of dominance, offering condescending greetings to a few familiar passengers. But as his gaze lands on Malik seated in first class, his demeanor changes. Don Esteban stops abruptly, his face tightening with surprise, then indignation. How, he wonders, could a black man occupy a seat in this exclusive section of the plane? His anger rises, fueled by deeply ingrained prejudices. "Excuse me," he says loudly, addressing a flight attendant. "There must be some mistake. This man doesn't belong in first class." The flight attendant, caught off guard, attempts to defuse the situation by calmly explaining that all first-class passengers have legitimately purchased their seats. But Don Esteban, furious, refuses to listen. "I demand to speak to your supervisor," he thunders. "There's no way someone like him belongs here. I've been a loyal customer for years, and I won't tolerate this kind of oversight." All eyes in the cabin turn to Malik, who remains still, his gaze fixed on Don Esteban. Malik could respond, could defend himself, but he chooses not to rise to the provocation. His silence, his composure in the face of Don Esteban's noisy outburst, only heightens the tension. It's as if Malik has seen this scene before, endured such public humiliation before, and knows that any reaction would only validate the implicit accusations. The flight attendant returns with the cabin manager, who tries to calm Don Esteban, but the latter is relentless. He threatens to call the airline's executives, demanding apologies and Malik's removal from first class. Then Malik, without raising his voice, sets down his magazine and looks Don Esteban directly in the eye for the first time. "Sir," he says quietly, "if you have an issue with my presence here, you're free to change your seat. But I'm not going anywhere." Don Esteban, furious, feels his authority challenged by Malik's composed response. The refusal to react with hostility or submit to his demands only intensifies his irritation. He turns to the other passengers, seeking their support. "Do you see this?" he shouts. "Is this normal? An imposter taking the place of real customers." But instead of finding approval, Don Esteban is met with disapproving glances. Several passengers, uncomfortable with the scene, look away, unwilling to get involved. An elderly woman seated near Malik looks up from her book and murmurs, "Sir, perhaps it's time to sit down and let the rest of us enjoy the flight in peace." Ignoring her, Don Esteban grabs his phone, ready to call the airline. But before he can dial, the cabin manager, now firmer, intervenes. "Sir, I must insist that you return to your seat immediately. If you continue to disrupt the passengers' peace, we will be forced to take more serious measures." Malik, still serene, resumes reading his magazine as if the scene no longer concerns him. He knows this battle is no longer his. It's Don Esteban's struggle with his own demons. Yet, the focus remains on Malik. Some passengers whisper among themselves, while others seem inspired by his poise. Upon landing at a prestigious airport, its expansive glass walls framing an intriguing scene, several black limousines await on the tarmac. Their uniformed drivers stand ready, and photographers' flashes light up the scene. A group of executives in suits stands nearby, watching the disembarking passengers closely. Don Esteban, straightening his collar, surveys the scene with satisfaction. Smiling, he assumes this grand reception is for him. "Finally, the recognition I deserve," he thinks, striding confidently toward the exit. Behind him, Malik descends calmly, his expression relaxed, while the other passengers glance around, curious about the commotion. As Don Esteban reaches the last steps of the aircraft, a member of the welcoming team approaches Malik with a professional smile. "Mr. Malik, welcome. We are honored to have you with us today. Your press team is ready, and our executives are eagerly awaiting your arrival. We hope you had an excellent flight," he says respectfully. The other executives also approach Malik, shaking his hand and offering admiring smiles. Don Esteban, stunned, freezes mid-step, his smug expression faltering. He struggles to comprehend the scene until the staff begins making announcements. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to welcome one of the most influential entrepreneurs in the aviation industry, Mr. Malik. Not only is he a major shareholder in this airline, but he is also a key partner in the development of our local airport. This flight was organized in his honor to celebrate our collaboration." Whispers spread among the passengers as all eyes turn to Malik with admiration and surprise. Don Esteban, fists clenched, feels the humiliation rise within him. He, who thought he dominated the scene, now finds himself relegated to the background, a silent witness to Malik's immense stature. Malik, for his part, accepts the congratulations with humility, posing for a few photos before heading toward one of the limousines waiting for him. As he passes Don Esteban, he briefly glances at him, a barely perceptible smile on his lips. "Good day, sir," Malik says calmly before entering the vehicle. Esteban stands there, speechless, unable to utter a word as the limousine doors close smoothly behind him. As the doors of the limousine close, the passengers, still stunned, continue to talk among themselves, gradually realizing the significance of what they have just witnessed. Some cast furtive glances at Don Esteban, whose face is now red with shame. This once confident real estate magnate is now confronted with a bewildering reality. His prejudices and arrogance have betrayed him. Malik, already comfortably settled in the limousine, watches the scene through the tinted windows with calm. He sees Don Esteban frozen, his hands trembling slightly, unable to move or speak. The silence around him is deafening, underscoring the isolation in which Esteban now finds himself. The irony of the situation is not lost on Malik. One of the photographers, thinking they're capturing the reaction of another passenger, accidentally points their camera toward Don Esteban. Sensing the heavy stares, Esteban tries to regain his composure. He nervously straightens his suit, lifts his chin, and walks toward the airport, his shoulders slightly hunched. But the arrogance he once displayed has dissolved, replaced by a more hesitant stride. No admiring glances follow him, and no one awaits him on the tarmac. Meanwhile, the other passengers, who had witnessed the public humiliation Don Esteban had inflicted on Malik, exchange discreet smiles. Some feel uncomfortable for having silently observed without intervening, while others are relieved to see justice so clearly restored. As Don Esteban walks away, he hears muffled laughter and murmurs behind him. The lesson is bitter. He, who thought he was in control, is now ridiculed, his stature diminished by the shadow of his own prejudices. In the limousine, Malik turns to his assistant, seated beside him, and calmly murmurs, "True wealth is not measured by what you own, but by how you treat others." The assistant nods, respectful of his boss's unshakable calm. As the limousine pulls away smoothly, Malik takes one last glance at the airport, where Don Esteban disappears into the crowd. Malik smiles inwardly, not out of vengeance, but because justice, today, had manifested in a way that no fortune could buy. The story of Malik and Don Esteban invites us to reflect on our own prejudices and to celebrate the diversity that enriches our society. Whether we are spectators or actors in our own stories, we must never forget the importance of empathy and respect.